Last year, I celebrated my 50th anniversary of priesthood, and at 78, I joined the crowd of those who tend to look back to the past, look in the rearview mirror. And it was especially moving to me when one of my cousins from Germany came to the celebration. And they gave me an amazing gift. It was a genealogy on my father's side. Now, I had a genealogy on my mother's side, which went back to 17-something. But that particular cousin who drew that up did it with the last 3 or 4 generations back into the 1900s with photographs. And it was amazing. I would look at the photographs of Carolina in Germany, and I would see Kathy in the United States. It was amazing, the similarities, even though they were oceans apart. But the gift that my cousin gave me last year was the genealogy on my father's side. And I thought it was great that I could go back to the late 1700s. But many pages of genealogy, which I have blown up to a size that takes 4 panels that would be about half the width of this altar. I can't put them up on my room. I have to put them up one at a time because it goes back to 1493, the year after Columbus came, discovered America. And so it was a startling gift. And as I looked at it, I began to realize how rich my heritage was and also how similar, as I mentioned before, the genes were. To see my cousins on this side of the Atlantic, on the other side of the Atlantic. But I'm not here to really tell you about my family genealogy. I'm here to share with you today a little bit about your family history. You who are Mary's family, a phrase that goes back to the founder of the novenas that we have here. We are part of the Central Association of the Miraculous Medal. How many of you can name the date in which it was founded? I won't ask for a show of hands, but it was 101 years ago, 1915. But the roots go back to a chapel that was built for Mary Immaculate in 1875, right here. The 9-day novena was first started in 1927. And then in 1930, 100 years after the apparition to Catherine Labouré, the Monday night novena began. It's a fascinating history. I had occasion to do some research in the early editions of the Miraculous Medal magazine, and it was amazing. Father Skelly, in case you don't remember that name as the founder, was way ahead of his time, and he spoke of Mary's family 100 years ago. But CAM, as we abbreviate it, is not alone. There is also AMM, the Association of the Miraculous Medal west of the Mississippi. And that was founded in 1918. So in a sense, a very slightly younger relative of ours here. But there's even more. There are many such associations throughout the world, so that we have an international association of the Miraculous Medal. And indeed, Father Karl Pieber is currently in Europe, in, I believe it's Slovakia, helping set up one of the associations there. We have a very interesting international history. Most of you will remember Mary's words to Catherine Labouré about, "I will come to the altar and I will give you a mission." But I wonder how many remember the fact that one of the things that she asked Catherine Labouré to do was to start a society for children. And these young children were to wear the miraculous medal day and night. They were to meet regularly to say the Rosary, the Litany of Loretto, the Memorare, and other prayers in honor of the Blessed Virgin Mary. They were to have processions and devotions, and to train the little ones to have great and trusting love in the Blessed Virgin. That way they'll grow up to think of her as their best friend. Catherine Labouré was given that mission. That mission has continued through different names. Today, in English, we would refer to it as the Vincentian Marian Youth. And it's in 40 countries. And there are 200,000 young people who are members of what began as the Children of Mary. But that's just the genealogy of our particular branch of the family. We are part, with the miraculous medal, of a much wider history, of the genealogy that goes back through St. Vincent and St. Louise. And Vincent and Louise were filled with two scripture quotes. That was the lens that they used to interpret things. Matthew 25, "Whatever you do to the least of my brothers and sisters." They had a profound sense of community, of oneness, that blood is not as important as the fact that we come from the same Father, our God. And also Luke 4, the foundational document for the Congregation of the Mission and almost all of the Vincentian family branches, of which there are some 200 in the world today, numbering over 2 million people. Luke 4 speaks of Jesus speaking in the midst of the assembly, unrolling the scroll and reading the passage from Isaiah about his mission to bring good news to those who are suffering, who are poor, who are forgotten, and who are marginalized, and saying, this day, that mission this scripture has been fulfilled in your midst. And so as we walk back through that history, we see the Congregation of the Mission. We see that most of you know who we are here, but there is one person in the Congregation of the Mission I'd like to single out who lives right here. It's the former Superior General, the successor of St. Vincent, Bob Maloney, who 20 years ago realized how many groups of people there were in the world who shared this DNA, this heritage of Vincent and Louise. And for 20 years, we have been trying to unfold and unpack that. And so we have groups such as the Daughters of Charity. Most of you here know the Daughters of Charity. You might not know that she was into nursing and codified rules for nursing before Florence Nightingale. It's not given credit in the histories of nursing, but she is instrumental in nursing. We have also the AIC, or the Ladies of Charity, founded at the same time by St. Vincent under the name of the Confraternities of Charity. And they are the oldest continuing functioning group of women, primarily women, in the church today. They are coming up to celebrating their 400th anniversary, as we are celebrating almost depending on how you count it, the 400th anniversary of the Congregation of the Mission from the sermon that got us started or from about 15 years later when we were officially incorporated. But the Ladies of Charity were the first. And there are more than 150,000 of them in 50 countries. And their motto has been, together, working against poverty. We could go on with a lot of other stories in here, but just one final one of our family history, the Vincent de Paul Society. I tell a story on myself that 25 years ago, when I heard members of the Vincent de Paul Society speak of themselves as Vincentians, I kind of sniffled to myself. Vincentians are male vowed celibates, members of the Congregation of the Mission. I'm embarrassed at that today because so many members of the Vincent de Paul Society, to their core, are Vincentians in living out the commitment of Matthew 25 and Luke 4. And they are in the world, they were founded in 1833 and came to the United States 12 years later in 1845. And today, there are 51,000 conferences or small groups in the world with over 700,000 members. And they are in 150 countries, basically infected with the same vision. Matthew 25, solidarity and community, and a sense of mission. There are many other branches in the Vincentian family, but one story I would like to say is about 15 years ago, I was working with a group. We were planning a meeting of the Vincentian family in New York City. And it was a sister of charity, not a daughter of charity, who said after one of the meetings, I travel around a lot and attend a lot of meetings, but when I get together with Vincentians, we click. We speak the same language. We are basically practical, hardworking people, and we share the same vision. And I feel like I've just discovered a whole bunch of long-lost cousins. And I hope that going through a little bit of this history today, you may recognize that this is your history too, as people who come here regularly to celebrate Mary's miraculous medal, be part of Mary's family. What is it that binds all of these ancestors together? What is the family resemblance? You know, in families, sometimes you can just look at someone and say, oh, I know that that's a Burke, or that's a Batista, or whatever it else. They just have the map of the family on their face. What is the family resemblance of all of these 2 million people throughout the world today? It is a commitment to community, a sense of solidarity that's rooted in Matthew 25, and a sense of mission. Let's bring good news to all of our brothers and sisters. But what's the purpose of all of this history? For you and for me. It's not just a historical exercise. I'd like to leave you with 2 questions today. Do we have in our bones Matthew 25? Do we have that sense of being sons and daughters, brothers and sisters? Do we have in our bones, in our blood, the sense of Luke 4? I have come on a mission to bring good news to others. Sometimes I fear that we may come here kind of looking for a spiritual vending machine to meet our needs. But that wasn't the way Mary looked at things. When Mary was given the news that she was to be the mother of God, did she sit back and say, oh my, how wonderful that is? No. First thing she did, she went on mission. She traveled up to the hill country to be with her family member, her cousin, who was in need. So as we review this family history, let's ask ourselves, can people recognize in us an awareness that we are sons and daughters, brothers and sisters, and that practical commitment evidenced in the mission to bring good news and to be good news to others?